At midnight, duct taped to a lawn chair under a dangling shop light, I faced two flippers, snarling, "Sign or burn." They thought fear would steady my hand. Instead, it started a clock I knew would end where paper always beats fire. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. My name is Elaine Hartley. I'm 62, a widow, and a mobile notary in Tampa, Florida. Paperwork is my weather, fronts and flows, pressure systems you can read if you know where to look. After 33 years as a records technician at the Hillsborough County Clerk's Office, I know what the courthouse accepts, what it ignores, and how a signature lands like a hammer. On June 14, 2023, I came home from a refinancing signing in Carrollwood with my canvas tote and my notary journal tucked under my arm. It was 10:48 p.m. when I parked in my driveway on Enola Avenue. The air smelled like hot asphalt and jasmine. I remember those details because the rest of the night would tilt sideways. By 12:07 a.m., I was in somebody else's garage, wrists cinched with duct tape to the arms of a lawn chair. Ricky and Joel Mercado, the brothers who run Mercado Home Solutions LLC, paced around me with the careless confidence of men who'd gotten away with a lot by talking fast and wearing clean sneakers. I had crossed them earlier that week by telling my neighbor, 80-year-old Adeline Park, to make her grandson read the contract the Mercados had slid under her front door. They'd offered her $130,000 cash for a shotgun house on E. Knollwood that appraised at $285,000. Adeline almost signed the net sheet full of fees that bled her dry. I printed her a copy of the property appraiser record, highlighted the 2022 sale prices on her block, and called the senior legal helpline for her. Adeline backed out. The Mercados lost their assignment buyer, and, according to a voice message they left me, their entire spread. They said I cost them $25,000. The garage smelled like gasoline and citrus cleaner. An oscillating fan pushed hot air around. Ricky wore a white Heat jersey, Joel wore black cargo shorts and a t-shirt that said grind every day. They'd ambushed me in my driveway, one hand clamped over my mouth, the other shoving me into a van with a cheap rattling partition. It took me a minute to realize we weren't leaving my neighborhood. We turned off S River Boulevard and crossed into Seminole Heights East. They made me look at a stack of forms on a metal workbench, a quitclaim deed, a memorandum of contract, and an acknowledgement. Sloppy downloads from some template site. The quitclaim deed was from me to their LLC. They wanted my seal. The property described was my own bungalow on Enola. They'd typed wrong margins, the legal description copied from Zillow like they'd eaten soup with a fork. Joel leaned close. "We're not here to talk. Stamp it, date it June 1st. Then you walk out." Ricky tapped a red gas can with his sneaker. "Sign or burn, Elaine. Your call." A good notary understands, both ink and people. Panic is a muscle you can choose not to flex. I noticed the corners of their forms were crisp on top and damp at the bottom. Somebody had sweated on them. They were scared too, though they covered it with noise. "Your acknowledgement doesn't match Florida's statutory language," I said. "If you record it, the clerk will reject it. Or worse, accept it and let you find out the hard way when your buyer's title company laughs you out of escrow." Joel smirked. "Just say the words, lady." I swallowed and looked toward the garage door, a tiny rectangle of daylight. That was all I needed to lie convincingly about morning. But then I saw the analog clock on the pegboard. 12:19 a.m., 5 hours until sunrise, plenty of time to be very careful. I said, slow and even, "If you want this to stick, I have to draft something clean. You don't want to drive to Pierce Street at 8 and get told there's a defect. The clerk who replaced me calls me every time she's unsure." I taught her to reject garbage. They didn't like to hear that. I had history in that building. Ricky ran a hand through his hair and feigned boredom. "Fix it then." I lifted my chin at my tote bag. "I need my laptop, my seal, and my journal. If we make it official, I need your IDs for my log." They'd taken my tote when they dragged me in. Joel brought it over, dumped it on the workbench, and kicked my journal back toward my chair. The cover is plain black, but inside, every entry has a timestamp, ID numbers, thumbprints, and notes about venue. It looks boring until you're in court and it becomes a sword. I opened the laptop. The battery read 38%. I slid a charging cable to a power strip, swallowed bile, and set the screen brightness low. My hands shook in a way only I would notice. I started typing a new document, the proper Florida statutory acknowledgement, and a clean grant deed form. I kept their names spelled exactly as on their IDs. I added their LLC address, 1218 E Clifton Street, to prove the venue. I designed the page to look like the state's own. But then I did something they couldn't see from where they stood. I opened a second document behind the first. It was a warranty deed, same formatting, but this one named Ricky Mercado and Joel Mercado, joint tenants as grantors, and the Elaine M. Hartley Revocable Trust, dated March 4, 2011, as grantee. The legal description was their house at 1218 E. Clifton, not mine. I'd memorized the parcel numbers in my neighborhood years ago out of boredom. We're all creatures of habit. Even if I'd gotten a number wrong, the address line and legal description carried more weight when recorded. I found their legal description online earlier that week, when I checked who exactly Adeline's buyers were. I knew their last recorded transfer and book and page by heart, like some people know batting averages. I copied it now with the speed of an old pianist who still remembers scales. To the untrained eye, the two deeds looked the same. Same fonts, same margins, same notary block. The trick wasn't the document. The trick would be getting them to speak the magic words. "Do you want this to be remote online notarization or in person?" I asked. "If it's online, I need audio recording. In person, I still recommend an audio note in case you ever need to prove it. Clerks love clean files." Joel snorted. "You think we're scared of court?" "I think you're trying to sell something quickly," I said. "Buyers' title companies will ask for the record. We make a clean file here, you won't have to see my face again." One problem, my wrists were taped. I couldn't stamp or hold IDs properly. I turned the chair with my knee, scraping metal on concrete, and nodded at the tape. "You're interfering with my process. I can't attest to identities if I can't manipulate documents. Untie me and I'll help you. Leave me tied and you're asking me to commit fraud twice." Ricky hesitated, then ripped the tape off my right wrist, then the left. Skin burned. My heartbeat eased. I massaged my wrists, then reached for my notary journal. I opened to a blank page and numbered it. Entry 741. I wrote the date, June 15th, just past midnight, and the venue, Hillsborough County, Florida. I wrote their names exactly how the IDs read. I asked for their driver's licenses, held them steady beneath the desk light, and wrote license numbers and issue dates. Then I held up an ink pad. "Write thumbprints, please," I said. Ricky rolled his eyes but did it. Joel followed. I pressed each thumb onto the square in the journal, leaving precise, ridged ovals. Those little swirls have saved careers and ended cons. But then Joel shifted, the garage door groaned a few inches, and a humid gust brought the ghost of rain. He stared at the stack of forms. "We doing this or what?" I clicked the audio recorder app on my phone and set it beside the laptop, careful to keep my face calm. "I'm going to record a brief acknowledgement memo for your buyer's file," I said. "Just in case, please say, one at a time, I am signing this warranty deed, of my own free will, granting the property described herein, and then state the address." Ricky laughed. "You're extra. You dragged a state official to a midnight signing," I said. "We're past extra." He tugged his jersey, squared his shoulders, and spoke to the phone. He read what I had written, exact words, because men like him love to hear themselves on record. Joel followed, clearer, as if he were auditioning for a role. I slid the first deed toward them, their dirty version, the one they thought I would stamp. Then I slid the acknowledgement and the buyer's memo I'd doctored to mirror my clean deeds language. I kept my finger on the correct document like a dealer spreading cards. "Sign here and here," I said. "Initial by the legal description, today's date." They signed in angry scribbles. I stamped the document they handed back without really looking thrilled. I knew exactly where my seal landed, on the deed with my trust as grantee and their property as grant. On their copy, I left the certificate loose. It would never survive a title exam. But then Joel demanded, "Now stamp ours." I leaned back. "I will. First, we need to correct your legal description. You copied mine from Zillow and mixed commas and semicolons. The clerk rejects for that. I'll fix it and stamp it when it's correct." I pulled it back to my side of the bench. 15 minutes. Ricky had the gas can in hand again, sloshing. "You think we're dumb?" "I think you want this done," I said. "Keep wasting my time with threats, and you'll walk away with nothing." The next 15 minutes were slow as honey. I pretended to edit their fake deed while my heart hammered. I saved my clean deed as a PDF, did the same with the audio file, and emailed both to my alias at Suncoast Title, where my friend Miranda ran their 6 a.m. e-recording batch. "If anything ever happens to me," I'd told her once, joking, "assume my email is evidence." I wrote urgent, record ASAP, call me 6:45 in the subject line. I didn't send the fake deed. I left it open on the screen in case they came around behind me. Then I printed both my deed and a spare buyer memo, handed them back the worthless papers, and straightened my spine. "It's done," I said. I'll stamp yours when the legal's clean. I'm going home. Joel stepped in my path. Nah, we drive you. I nodded. Fine. But if I'm not in my house by 1 a.m., my neighbor will call the police. We have a system. That was a lie. But lies feel real if you dress them in numbers. I held my tote close, keeping my journal between my arm and ribs like a baby bird. The van's back doors opened. I climbed in, sat on the ribbed floor, and kept my eyes low. They pushed me out near my driveway at 12:58 a.m., hot, quiet air, crickets like electricity. The van pulled away. I went inside and locked the door. I didn't turn on the kitchen light. I leaned against the cool sink, shuddered, then snapped into motion. My hands knew what to do before my head finished catching up. I texted Miranda, emergency, check email, record deed with book and page priority as soon as portal opens. Call me at 6:45. I set 2 alarms, 6 and 6:38 a.m. Sunrise that day would be 6:34. I stood in a cold shower for exactly 90 seconds, clothes off, fear sluicing down the drain. Then I dressed in jeans and a loose chambray shirt I used for yard work. I placed my journal in my small safe by the bed and clicked the tumbler. I took my stainless tumbler from the freezer, poured coffee over ice at 1:16 a.m., sat at my small dining table, and wrote down what happened in block letters, exactly as I remembered, along with the license plates I'd memorized at the red light on Florida Avenue, a gray Ford Transit van, plate starting QZL. I called the non-emergency line and gave a concise report. 2 men I knew by name had assaulted and kidnapped me, forced me to notarize a document under duress in a detached garage at 1218 E Clifton Street, Seminole Heights. I kept it calm. The dispatcher transferred me to an officer who took my statement. He told me to meet a detective at 7:30 a.m. at District 2 on 29th Street if I felt safe until then. Except I didn't intend to wait in any lobby long. At 5:56 a.m., my phone buzzed. Miranda wasn't one for emojis. She wrote, "Got it. Portal opens at 6:15, stamps calculated." "You sure?" I replied, "Yes, it's clean. See my memo. Record first in queue. Call me the second it's stamped." I'd listed consideration as $10 and other valuable consideration, standard language. Doc stamps on the deed would cost me 70 cents per $100 of consideration. 7 cents if the recorder took $10 literally, but Miranda knew the trick. Some counties default to minimums. "I'll eat whatever it costs," I'd told her once, half joking. Today, I meant it. At 6:28 a.m., seconds before sunrise, a sliver of orange cut between my blinds. My heart thumped in my throat. The phone buzzed again at 6:41 a.m. Miranda said, "Book 31,267, page 411. Timestamp 6:39:12 a.m. Warranty deed recorded. Lane 3 was empty, so we jumped. You okay?" I exhaled with a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "I'm okay. You're my favorite person. You owe me muffins and the juiciest story," she said. "And Elaine, be careful." "I will," I said. Starting now, at sunrise I owned their house. It wasn't a metaphor. It sat there in my email, book 31,267, page 411, instrument number, timestamp, clerk's seal. I printed the receipt, folded it into my tote, and called a locksmith. "Seminole Heights, Clifton Street," I said. "I have proof of ownership and need locks changed. Today." They quoted $125 plus $25 per extra deadbolt. "We can be there in 30 minutes, the dispatcher said. "Make it 45, I said. "I want a witness." I drove to District 2 with my tote buckled into the passenger seat like a seatmate. Detective Morgan, sandy-haired and 30C, listened without interrupting. I gave her my phone's audio file. She heard Ricky say, "I am signing this warranty deed, of my own free will, granting the property described herein, 1218 E Clifton Street." She raised an eyebrow like she'd just watched a magic trick. I slid my notary journal across her desk, open to entry 741, with the thumbprints. "You mind if we copy this?" she asked. "Of course." "I brought a scanner in my car too, if needed," I said. She smiled. "You're not new to this. I retired from your favorite building," I said. "And recorded something at dawn." I handed her the printed warranty deed receipt. She whistled low. "You're not kidding. Detective Morgan didn't give legal advice." But she picked up the phone and called a patrol unit. "We're going to 1218 E Clifton," she said. "Possible kidnapping location. Possible arson threat. Bring body cams." We reached the house at 8:07 a.m. The locksmith's white van was already parked across the street, a man in a baseball cap leaning against the fender, sipping from a styrofoam cup. The house was a 1950s ranch with a battered garage door, streaked with grease opening on the driveway like a mouth that had forgotten how to close. Early sunlight made the spider webs look like silver nets. The patrol officers knocked hard, no one answered. The garage door stood unlocked. Inside, the chair I'd vacated sat in the center like a prop. A single strip of duct tape dangled from the right arm, a curl puckered by sweat. On the workbench sat the stack of forms, coffee-ringed and dotted with orange fingerprints. The gas can leaned, half full. Detective Morgan shot me a look that said, "I believe you." She turned to one officer. "Clear the house." The locksmith looked at me and the officers. "You want me to start?" I pulled the recorded deed from my tote. "Change every lock," I said. "This is my house now." I handed him a printed copy of the book and page plus my trust certificate. He took photos with his phone, nodded, and got to work. But then a gray Ford Transit pulled around the corner and slowed when it saw the cruisers. Ricky was driving, Joel sat passenger. They didn't stop. They kept rolling like they were sightseeing and turned down a side street. One cruiser peeled off, quiet, and followed. Detective Morgan sighed. "They'll come back with a lawyer." She pointed to my deed. "Which means you need one too." I nodded. I'd expected that. I called a lawyer whose office used to bring us cookies on filing days, Camilla Ortiz, real estate litigation, downtown Tampa. Her receptionist said Miss Ortiz had court at 9 but could see me at 11. Retainer, $4,200. I said, "Tell her I'll bring a cashier's check," and texted Miranda to hold the teller line for me at Suncoast Bank. Then I posted a notice on the front door, notice of new owner, entry prohibited without permission of Elaine M. Hartley Revocable Trust. Detective Morgan took a photo of me taping it up, just in case. I drove to the bank and handed a teller named Terry a note. "I'm fine, please don't say my name out loud." He glanced at my face, saw the tightness there, and did as I asked. He counted out a cashier's check while the morning rush formed behind me. By noon, the Mercados served me, via a man with a polo that said legal courier, with a notice of lis pendens and a petition to void a fraudulent deed. Their packet accused me of undue influence and trickery, which, I admit, weren't entirely wrong words. But Florida law cares about what's on paper and whether you signed it voluntarily. The audio said they did. At 2:30 p.m., I sat in Miss Ortiz's office with a cup of bland green tea and a copy of my notary journal on her desk. Camilla was small and sharp, with hair in a bun that looked like it could cut glass. She read the petition, the deed, and my memo. Then she looked up at me and said, "You think like a clerk and a lawyer got stuck in an elevator and had to raise a child?" I laughed for the first time that day. "I'll add that to my resume." She laid out the plan in short staccato sentences. We'd file an emergency motion to dissolve their lis pendens, present my deed, my audio, and the journal entry we'd attach, a sworn affidavit. We'd request a temporary injunction keeping them off the property. We'd ask for attorney's fees. She would file it all before 4:30 p.m., except there was a hitch I hadn't anticipated. In the Mercados' packet was a counter deed recorded at 10:12 a.m., a quitclaim from their LLC back to themselves to correct fraud. Shoddy and doomed, but recorded. They wanted to stack confusion on top of chaos. Camilla tapped that page with her nail. "Sloppy," she said, "but it means we have to move fast." We moved. At 4:11 p.m., Camilla filed our emergency motion with exhibits labeled like a crime novel. Exhibit A, warranty deed recorded at 6:39 a.m. Exhibit B, audio recording transcript. Exhibit C, notary journal entry 741. Exhibit D, photos of the garage. Exhibit E, affidavit of Elaine M. Hartley. The clerk stamped our hearing for Friday, June 23rd, 8 days out. That felt like a lifetime. But then the Mercados tried a different angle. That night, at 9:32 p.m., they posted on Nextdoor claiming I was a paper thief who stole their home with fake paperwork. They posted a cropped photo of my driveway and my mailbox. The comments section lit up with people who either hated flippers or hated old ladies who stood in their way. Half the neighborhood sent me the thread with messages like, "You good? And need anything?" Tampa can be cruel, but Seminole Heights protects its own. I stayed inside my bungalow with my phone on loud and the deadbolt set. At midnight, I cleared my dining table and laid out everything in timeline order, labeling items with sticky notes, the call logs, the bank receipt, the audio file, the deed receipt, the locksmith invoice. I printed 2 extra sets for Camilla and for the detective. The next morning, a patrol unit parked near my new house at Clifton to discourage visitors. I started replacing blinds and cleaning out the garage with a shop broom I'd brought. The duct tape chair went to the curb with a note to the waste hauler, "Please take..." Stray cats could have that ghost, I wouldn't. Then, midweek, Miranda called with a tremor in her voice. "They tried to record something else," she said. "A revocation of your deed. Clerk rejected it for missing notary," they argued. Clerk called security. I thanked her and hung up. I was angry, but it felt focused now, like standing under the first blast of a summer storm you'd prepared for by cleaning your gutters. I changed the locks again for good measure, and scheduled an inspection to ensure there weren't hidden cameras or traps. The electrician charged $180 to cap weird wires in the garage. He shook his head. Whatever they were doing here, it wasn't just cars. Friday came. The courthouse's 6th floor always smells like carpet glue and anxiety. Judge Esther Howland ran her civil motion docket like a drill sergeant with a soft heart. Camilla got to the point. She moved to dissolve the lis pendens and validate my deed. She played the audio. Ricky's voice filled the courtroom. "I am signing this warranty deed, of my own free will, granting the property described herein, 1218 East Clifton Street." The judge leaned forward. "That seems unambiguous." The Mercado's attorney, a man with cufflinks shaped like tiny anchors, argued duress. He raised his eyebrows toward me like I was a magician who'd hypnotized 2 grown men at midnight. He said I'd tricked them, I'd created papers they didn't understand. He waved at the counter deed and claimed chaos should equal void. Camilla didn't smile. She asked the judge's permission to approach with my notary journal. She opened it to entry 741 and pointed to the thumbprints. "Your Honor," she said, calm as a metronome, "my client is a commissioned notary. Her journal documents the signers, the time, and the venue. There is an audio recording where the plaintiffs state the address and the phrase, 'of my own free will.' The deed they seek to void was recorded first. At 6:39 a.m., the so-called counter deed is a quitclaim they executed to themselves. Hours later, it conveys nothing. There is a pending criminal investigation into their assault of my client. As a matter of public policy, the court should not reward people who attempt to profit from kidnapping." Judge Howland flipped through the exhibits. She took off her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose, and said, "Plaintiffs argue duress, but the record shows they were the ones wielding the threat. The deed's language is clear, the acknowledgement is properly executed, and the clerk recorded it at sunrise. I find the lis pendens unfounded and dissolve it. I decline to void the deed. I grant a temporary injunction prohibiting the plaintiffs from coming within 500 feet of the property pending resolution of any criminal case. Defendant's attorney's fees will be addressed upon proper motion." Ricky swore under his breath. Joel swallowed hard. The bailiff glanced at them like a parent with rambunctious toddlers. I breathed for what felt like the first time all week. But then Monday delivered, the mid-roll surge I didn't see coming. A certified letter arrived from a hard money lender in Pinellas Park. The Mercados had taken out a $190,000 short-term loan against Clifton Street 3 weeks earlier, using a deed of trust that recorded second behind their original purchase money mortgage. The letter demanded proof. I assumed the debt or the lender would accelerate and foreclose. Camilla called me within an hour of my text. "They leveraged it like a cash machine," she said. "We need leverage back. We found it in the loan's own fine print. The deed of trust had a clause about change in ownership triggering immediate default. Our recorded deed was, to the lender, a transfer. The lender could foreclose, sure, but they had a problem. The property now belonged to my trust, and I had a judge's injunction and a kidnapping report." Camilla proposed a move that felt like pulling a tablecloth without spilling dishes. We'd contact the lender ourselves, present the criminal report, and offer a deed in lieu of foreclosure to the lender's holding company in exchange for a full release of the debt, plus $25,000 to cover my attorney's fees, and the locksmith, and the electrician, and my lost work time. "You want me to give them the house I just won?" I asked, stunned. "Not quite," she said. "We'll make them pay you to take the debt off their books. Then we'll immediately sell to a buyer who actually qualifies. I already have a neighborhood investor who buys clean and rents fair. You'd net about $140,000 after everything. Or we fight for a year and maybe get the same. Your call." I thought of the garage's smell, the gas can, Adeline's shaky hands, my own pulse in my throat. "Peace has a price. Make the offer," I said. Camilla sent a letter with words that snapped like flags. She attached the judge's order, the police report, and my audio. She gave the lender 48 hours to respond before we added them to our injunction motion as a party tied to criminal proceeds. 30 hours later, Wednesday, at 3:20 p.m., a man named Brian from the lender called Camilla and said, in a voice like he was chewing glass, "We'll take the deed in lieu if she signs a release. We'll wire $25,000 at closing, plus your release of lien and reconveyance recorded within 24 hours, she said. And an agreement you won't do business with the Mercados for 12 months. Brian grunted. Fine. We set closing for Friday, July 7th. Recording fees were $38.50. After the deed in lieu recorded, Camilla immediately recorded their reconveyance. Then she slid a purchase and sale agreement across her desk. Buyer, Good Homes of Tampa LLC, price, $295,000, close in 10 days, my trust as seller. I signed with a hand that didn't shake. The buyer's inspector found galvanized pipes that needed replacement and a breaker that tripped if you breathed on it. We credited $6,200 at closing. I also paid Camilla a success bonus because watching her work felt like watching a surgeon save a life. When the wire hit my account on July 17th, net proceeds $141,700.34. I sat in my little dining room and cried for exactly 6 minutes, then called Adeline. Don't worry, I said, we're fine. If anyone knocks, you call me at 911. By August, the state attorney's office filed charges against Ricky and Joel: kidnapping, false imprisonment, attempted grand theft, and witness tampering. Their lawyer tried to carve a deal. Detective Morgan called me before the hearing. They'll plead to avoid trial, she said. You okay if we agree to a 5-year suspended sentence for Joel and 7 for Ricky, with 3 years actual time, probation, and a no-contact order? Restitution to you, $7,800. Why $7,800? I asked, eyebrow raised. Forensic fees, your locksmith, your attorney's initial retainer, and your lost income from canceled signings, she said. The sale money is civil, this piece is criminal. I sat with it. Prison doesn't fix fear. But the recorded decision, the paper does. I'm okay with that, I said. In September, Judge Howland signed an order awarding me $8,650 in attorney's fees on the civil side for the Lis Pendens stunt and the counter-deed nonsense. The Mercados didn't show. The clerk entered the judgment. A week later, we filed a lien against their truck. When they missed their payment plan on the fee order in November, the sheriff's office appeared at their duplex with a writ and towed the Ford Transit away. I watched the video a neighbor sent me twice, then deleted it, because sometimes you need to keep a little mercy out of reach. People asked whether I was scared to sleep afterward. I told them the truth. The first month, yes. I kept my porch light on and my notary seal in the freezer, like a talisman. But fear shrinks when you give it clean edges. The order said no contact. The deed said book 31,267, page 411. The numbers pinned the nightmare to paper like butterflies in a museum case. On October 1st, I used $50,000 from the sale to set up a small fund at Suncoast Credit Union. I called it the Knollwood Fund. It pays for appraisals and lawyer consults for seniors on my block who get cash offers. Word got around. Twice that fall, someone texted me a photo of a yellow flyer promising fast cash, and I biked over, folded it, and slipped a card for the legal aid intake under the door. No one else on our block sold under market. I saw Detective Morgan at the Publix on Florida Avenue in November. She leaned on her cart and grinned. So, she said, you bought a house with paper and sold it with paper and made 2 birds out of 1 stone. Not exactly, I said. I burned their matches. She laughed and reached for a box of cereal. Stay out of garages, she said. At least for a while. I promised I would. And mostly, I kept it. The last time I drove by Clifton Street, the new owner had painted the garage door a clean gray and planted a line of fire bushes along the fence. The oscillating fan was gone. I slowed, listened for crickets that weren't there, too early in the evening, and kept moving. A storm was brewing over the Hillsborough River, that kind of bruised purple cloud we get in winter. I still keep my notary journal like a diary for the county. Entry 741 sits between a refinance and a power of attorney for a man whose mother could no longer hold a pen. If you flip the page too fast, you'd miss the dark ink of our midnight. People imagine revenge smells like smoke. That night, in the garage, that's what I thought too. A nozzle pointed, a threat in the air. But in the end, it smelled like warm toner and fresh paper and the coffee in Miranda's cup when she called at 6:41 to say the deed had stamped. Fire licks up quick and dies. Ink cools, then sets. I used to think my signature was just a witness. Now I know it's a fuse. And when someone tells you to sign or burn, it's worth remembering which one actually lasts till morning.